I know a lot of y'all was praying that this video was never gonna happen. But guess what? Oh, it's about to happen. It's gonna happen. What we have here, for y'all that don't know, is the most hated book by Caucasians. They absolutely hate it. This is the most hated book on Facebook. You will find no other book that is more hated. And they haven't even read the book. They ain't even read it. But guess what? Now we're going to actually read it and see what's going on in this book and why they don't want this type of information revealed. Oh yeah, it's about to get real truthful like. So it's written by Paul Guthrie, inspired by Elijah Muhammad, the Great. The Great. So we're going to go chapter by chapter, and we're going to go into the hidden history of the Caucasians that you were never taught in school, never taught in high school, college, grad school. I don't care what school you went to. They never taught you this. And I'm talking to you original people of the planet, so-called black people, or rather indigenous or aboriginal people of the planet, the natural original inhabitants of the planet. But guess what? Now y'all gonna find out why they hate this book so much. Let's go. Boy, I bet you they shaking in their goddamn drawers. Like, oh no, please don't read this book. Oh, why? No. Guess what? Bitch, I'm about to do it. Chapter 1. What is this book about? We're gonna see what this book is all about. This book examines a series of events that took place long ago in and around the region of the Near East. Those events include the disruption of civilization. The disruption of civilization. Did you hear that? The disruption of civilization. The sudden arrival of white people in the... You know what? I ain't going to say white. I'm going to say pale-skinned people because ain't nobody white. Okay? That's what we going to say. So anytime it say white, I'm saying pale skin or pinkish pale. Anyway, those events include the disruption of civilization, the sudden arrival of pinkish pale people in the vicinity of the Caucasus Mountains, and what happened 2,000 years later when they unexpectedly came out of the hills and attacked the centers of civilization. You heard that? And attacked the centers of civilization. By examining these events, we will be able to better determine to what extent the facts of history agree with the teachings of Elijah Muhammad. An understanding of the material offered in this book depends in part on the reader's familiarity with some of the more important trends that occurred in the history of the ancient world. Chapter 1 starts by offering an overview of those trends. In this way, the first chapter is intended to refamiliarize the reader and to present him or her with an outline of the facts upon which the rest of this book is based. Afterwards, we will begin to examine how all of these events relate to the teachings of Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad, that is, Elijah the Great. Now, I must conclude before continuing on that most of them raggedy-ass, racist-ass, hateful-ass parasites in the comments on my Facebook page, Mr. Truth Teller, 99% of them never even read the book, and they was making all type of ignorant-ass, racist-ass remarks about Charles Darwin, basically, okay? Trying to call black people monkeys. But what we found out is that they are the ones that have the RH factor. That's what we found out. They're the ones born with little tails. Some of them at birth and it's cut off. They are the ones, like I said, with the RH factor, or they have the rhesus monkey in them. Anyway, let's continue. See, this is the shit they don't want us to know about, y'all. Stick with me now. Making of the white man, or pale-skinned man. An overview of ancient history. Between 6,000 and 7,000 years ago, signs of disruption began to appear throughout the ancient civilizations of the Near East. For nearly 1,000 years, the cultures of the region underwent a change, a period of regression. The historical record shows that large groups of people moved into and out of the region. As chaos and dissatisfaction grew, problems intensified in the ancient societies of the Near East, slipped deeper into despair. Then about 6,000 years ago, the inevitable happened. Civilization fell apart. What caused the breakup of civilization 6,000 years ago? Many experts have tried to address this issue, but so far no clear explanation has been found. Some historians have speculated that a natural disaster such as an earthquake or some similar event took place, but they were unable to find any evidence to support their claims. Besides, all of the clues pointed in a direction of an event quite different from that of an earthquake, a condition that grew over an extended period of time. The picture is one of communities in turmoil, of societies collapsing and falling apart from within, of chaos, dissatisfaction, and unrest. The most accurate summation would be to say that the people just began fighting and killing one another. That is the best way to describe what happened, what was happening in the Near East 6,000 years ago. Soon as the unsettling of civilization, another interesting change began to take place. This change occurred in the area of the Caucasus Mountains. There in West Asia, a previously unknown group of people suddenly appeared, as if from out of nowhere. Collectively, they are known as the Indo-Europeans, Caucasians, or pinkish pale people. The facts show that they first entered the area around 6,000 years ago. 2,000 years later, their invasions would bring them into contact with the civilized nations to the south. Now, see, first when they came out them caves, y'all, they went into ancient Egypt or Kemet. This is what George M. James talks about in his book, Stolen Legacy. How they were taught by the ancient Kemites or the Ethiopian people. Caucasians was taught them how to speak a language because they was running at first in the caves. Now we're going to get the way we going to get there. And I know y'all hate it. I know y'all hate it. I know you hate it, but guess what? Bitch, you going to get this work. Okay. 2,000 years later, their invasions would bring them into contact with the civilized nations to the south. But as to where they first came from and how they finally ended up living in West Asia, very little appears to be known because they had no fixed homes and wandered about from place to place. Historians usually describe their way of life as nomadic. In the book A History of the Ancient World, Chester Starr talks about their lack of culture and their uncivilized way of life. Sometimes his scholarship is impeccable. We talk about the hidden history of the Caucasian race, this shit we've never taught in school, period. But you're going to get that work today. Let's go. As for their language and the uncertainty surrounding their place of origin, Starr said of them, since they were so backward, it is very difficult to use archaeological evidence to help pin down the original home of the Indo-European tongues. No specific pattern of physical culture can be attached to their languages, and they were written only after their speakers came into contact with civilized peoples. With the arrival of the Caucasians into the cold and sparsely populated area of the world, the few older communities which either had been established there in Europe were either abandoned or destroyed. The evidence clearly suggests that the original inhabitants of those settlements either fled or were killed off by the newly arriving whites, aka Caucasians, or pale-skinned people, pinkish pale. Okay, now, I want y'all to understand this. In an article appearing in a Journal of Indo-European Studies, Professor Marja Gambustus talked about the arrival of the pinkish pale people and the subsequent disintegration of what she calls Old Europe. The farms and villages that had existed in Europe before the arrival of the Caucasian, according to Gambustus, after the Caucasians showed up, drastic changes started to occur in the region north of the Caucasus Mountains, that is, expanding how those changes signaled the arrival of the Caucasians. Gambustus says a time period around 3,500 BC forms a caesura, I don't know if I'm saying that right, y'all, caesura, between Old Europe and Indo-European Europe. It is a time when life in the large villages and townships either stops or is markedly changed. All right. It is at this time, the first half of the 4th millennium BC, that the first eruption into Danubian and northern European plains of the Kurgan or Proto-Indo-European peoples from the lower Volga, lower Don Stupy, is dated. Gambustus, 1970, the degenerate changes in the settlements of the old European civilization may be assumed to indicate the beginning of the Indo-European presence. Okay? Now you get the time frame in which this is started taking place, the arrival of the Caucasians. But let us continue. Following the breakup of the ancient societies and the arrival of the Caucasian in Europe, the people of the Near East worked to reestablish the level of peace and security that they had once known. Slowly, Over time, communities were rebuilt, prosperity was restored, and signs of the new life started to emerge. In Africa, along the banks of the Nile River, Egypt blossomed into the Pyramid Age. In Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the Sumerians too established a civilization renowned for its high level of culture and refinement, even as far away as India. Along the tributaries of the Indus River, the Dravidians constructed the magnificent twin cities of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. Where we at? Rich in arts, sciences, and the necessities of life, these civilizations laid the foundations for trade and finance, architecture, geometry, mathematics, and astrology, philosophy, law and government, writing and religion. So we been had shit popping. When they was in the Caucasus Mountains, we was in Egypt running shit. We had all this stuff going on while they was in the caves, eating shit, smelling like shit. I mean, this is documented shit here. Eating their food raw. That's that Neanderthal gene. Only a subhuman would be able to eat animals raw and still survive and have children and families. Anyway, anybody else will have parasites and die. But let us continue. Throughout the period of Reconstruction, not much attention was being paid to the nomads of the North. The threat never seemed significant. From time to time, a few Nordic bands would wander down into the centers of civilization, but their activities never amounted to more than occasional raids or skirmishes. In the course of time, small groups of the pale-skinned pinkish people were able to establish camps along the hills and deserts outside of Mesopotamia. Although such camps survived mainly by robbing and scavenging, their overall impact upon civilization remained minimal. Most of the Caucasian pale-skinned people were at that time still beyond range, up in the hills, the Caucasus Mountains. In the book, The Chalice and the Blade, Ryan Eisler, the internationally known scholar, talks about the distant presence of the Caucasians and the low level of concern that their activities invoked. On page 43, Eisler explains. See, here go the scholarship I was telling y'all about. The scholarship of this book is impeccable. At first, it was like the proverbial biblical cloud, no bigger than a man's hand. The activities of seemingly insignificant nomadic bands roaming the less desirable fringe areas of our globe. Over millennia, they were apparently out there in the harsh, unwanted, colder, spatial territories on the edge of the earth, while the first-rate architectural civilization spread out along the lakes and rivers in the fertile heartlands. To these agricultural peoples, enjoying humanity's early peak of evolution, peace and prosperity must have seemed the blessed eternal state for humankind. The nomads no more than a peripheral novelty. But the Caucasians of the North were not to remain a distant novelty forever. 2,000 years after their arrival, the nomadic tribes began to move. They moved away from what for years had been their home. Yeah, I know y'all hate it, but guess what? Bitch, we gonna keep on reading. We gonna keep going. As they swarmed down out of the hills, some of them began to travel west toward the Aegean Sea. Huh? At the same time, another large group trudged southward in the direction of the centers of civilization. Here they come with their raggedy ass coming to cause technology and chaos. We already read that from the beginning. How they cause disruption. Remember, they cause disruption, y'all. Okay, listen now. The unforeseen mass movement of the Caucasian pinkish pale people out of the hills of West Asia has generally been looked upon as a historical mystery. That is why most historians agree with Chester Starr, who, in his attempt to explain it, characterized the Caucasians' unexpected awakening this way. Here we go. This is what he had to say now. Listen to that scholarship. It's impeccable. Okay, let us go. For unknown reasons, the group went into a ferment shortly before 2000 BC and started spilling out all over Europe and Western Asia. As they moved southward, they were joined by smaller groups, members of their own who had earlier taking up positions along the hills and cavern routes outside of Mesopotamia. As they advanced toward the centers of civilization, they began a series of violent and devastating attacks. One by one, the great cities of the ancient world began to topple. So complete was the effort of the onslaught that when it was all over, nothing was left standing. Damn, so they came out the caves, fucking up everything. You see, we talking about a two-legged beast. They went and fucked everything up. Now, we're going to continue. Like I said, y'all, one thing about this book, the scholarship is impeccable. And I know y'all racist, low vibrational parasitic ass motherfuckers hate it. But guess what? Bitch, you gonna get this work. In the book, A World History, William Harley McNeill outlined what took place. On page 43, Professor McNeill tells us, during a period of about 300 years, beginning soon after 1700 BC, the civilized world was overrun by barbarian conquerors. Barbarians. Y'all got to remember now, they was in the caves for 2,000 years. Okay? Running around butt naked and shit. Fighting out wild animals. Eating shit, smelling like shit. They didn't take no baths, y'all. Okay? Doing all type of inhumane ass things. See, that's why they only teach you about this damn history. But guess what? Y'all got people like me that's going to give y'all history that you was never taught. So, now we can understand why these motherfuckers could go all over the planet killing innocent indigenous people for no reason. We about to find out why they been doing this shit. Why they go to sleep good at night after murdering people. No guilty conscience. String your ass up in the tree and then go eat some apple pie. See what I'm saying? Then we got to understand the nature of a two-legged beast. And guess what? This Caucasian Paul Guthrie is giving it to you raw. And I know y'all motherfuckers hate it. And guess what? Bitch, I don't care. Okay, let's keep going. Hill peoples, living north and east of Mesopotamia. Tribesmen from the desert fringes of Syria, Palestine, and northern Arabia, together with wide-ranging war bands originating from the northern steppe combined in varying proportions to attack all existing centers of civilized life. Damn. The range of these barbarian conquests was never again equal. At the two extremes of the civilized world, in Crete and in India, little but smoking ruins remained. God damn. We talking about a motherfucker two-legged beast. Now, so the facts show that after the construction of the civilization, the Caucasoid, pale-skinned, pinkish people came out of the hills and destroyed it all. See, I ain't gonna say whites because they didn't brainwash people and program people that white is pure, black is evil. So I ain't even finna give these white supremacists the glory. Bitch, you wanna be called white on this page? You won't. I'm not playing into nobody else's game. I'm gonna call it what it is. Pale-skinned, pinkish people. Okay? The Caucasians, we just keep it like that, Caucasian. Okay? The Caucasians came out of the hills and destroyed it all. The devastation that rocked the ancient world across the board. It was for this reason that if we look at the early history of civilization, we find that all the centers of civilization throughout the Near East, Africa, Mesopotamia, and India underwent a severe fall at about the same period of time. Ain't that some shit? Listen, every historian agrees that the uprooting of those civilizations were the result of attacks from pinkish, pale-skinned Caucasian barbarians who came rushing down out of the hills of West Asia. You know what, y'all? I'm going to do a part 2 to this video. We're going to pick up from this part because I don't want to give y'all too much because some of y'all motherfuckers going to go in shock because I'm revealing y'all history. And some of y'all going to be grateful that, hey, you're going to understand the nature in which our ancestors were when they were going around killing people. And I know the indigenous aboriginal people are going to appreciate this because you'll finally be able to understand why certain groups of people have acted like they have throughout history and why you were mistreated.